I want to talk to you about schools. I think our public school system continues to be in crisis. I'm excited about the prospect of an elected school board on the horizon. Our mayors, without question, have just manipulated the schools and really our students for political gain and to score points. And it's really been a disaster. It'll be great to have schools out of their hands. However, that's not a panacea. There are a lot of problems, and I want to talk about a couple of policy issues, and I want to talk about a couple of economic issues, and then describe what I think are some good steps that we can take. In terms of policy, top of the list for me is charter schools. I think that while charter schools that are doing well and serving students well right now in our school system should be allowed to continue to function, they really have been a disaster for schools. They've undermined the public school idea. They are preferential. They are often exclusive. And most importantly, it's this kind of public private model that, in fact, is a way for private enterprise to get taxpayer money is not effective and it doesn't serve everybody. We have got to be committed to the idea that we are serving everybody in this city, whether we're talking about parks or transit or schools. The making do, only serving some people, only serving the easiest people to serve, only housing the people who it's not hard to house, or teaching the people whose parents have resources to kind of subsidize a mediocre education experience. That is not a democratic process. That is not a city that is working, and we just have to commit to the idea that we're going to make sure everybody thrives, everybody succeeds in the city, and without a doubt, that's what the Fifth Ward is going to do. To the extent that it's within our power, we're going to make sure that we're serving everybody and everybody's needs are getting taken care of. So, charter schools, I think, first, they need a very careful review. All of the existing schools, it seems like they kind of have a free pass until there's a disaster, and then they start digging and they find all kinds of problems. Let's not keep doing that. Let's make sure that we know exactly what's going on with them on the front end. And let's make some of that information public because sometimes it's a journalist or it's a civic advocate who discovers a challenge. Charter schools originally were designed to have alternative models to what was happening in mainstream public schools, and then based on the success of their models and their ability to integrate back into the mainstream school system, they were considered a success or a failure. At some point, they became independent entities that are really not accountable in that way. I think for new charters, I think for charters that we see are in trouble, we have to restore that original principle and we have to say, you're here to serve the public school system. Whatever you do with the young people you serve has to be something that everyone can use, everyone can benefit from, and that can be folded back into the schools, or you have to prepare to go private. I mean, essentially, if you give one school special consideration, special resources, it's able to make a profit when the other schools aren't, then you're saying the young people in that place are better than all of the other students in our school system. And we can't, if we continue doing that, we're going to continue to have the problems we have. I mean, that's just how it is. And we're in a time of such crisis that I think, I hope that it's very clear to people what the consequences are of pushing a whole bunch of people to the side and essentially telling them they don't matter. We are seeing very difficult times in our city now because of that exact kind of practice. So, in terms of policy, I think that's an important change we have to make. In terms of economics, and in a sense, this is also policy, the way we fund our schools is a disaster and it has to change. We can't do all of it. Certainly, city council can't. Even the city as a whole is not able to. It's going to require lobbying Springfield. It's going to require going to D.C. A lot of that is the work of the mayor. But I think a really well prepared caucus in city council could also be very effective. And I'm willing to commit to being a part of that solution. I believe public schools are incredibly important. They're the beating heart of our city because they're our future, literally. It's how our young people are getting prepared for, growing up. And I have some experience as somebody who co-designed and led a summer and after-school program for high school students on the south side of Chicago. I've spent time with our young people and I know what they're capable of and I know how inspiring working with them can be if they know that they're believed in and if they have the resources they need and the space they need to be able to thrive, they thrive and they do some really amazing things. We need to find a way to communicate to our all of our students in the Fifth Ward that that's how we feel about them. Now, that's one element. It's very complicated, slightly less complicated, but also a really kind of a big economic challenge is our TIF system. So our TIFs, anytime we put a TIF in an area that includes public schools, those schools don't get any additional resources as property taxes in the area go up, either through property value going up or tax increases. It stays the same. And that means that they're essentially starved of resources. It doesn't make any sense. Why and this money almost always ends up in a developer's pocket. So the question is, why are we taking tax money that's supposed to go to schools and giving it to developers? And the answer is we're in Chicago. So what we need to do instead is wind down our TIF system. I think we need to just review all of them and start dismantling them. That's a complicated subject and something I can get into elsewhere. But essentially, we have to free our schools from this TIF system that kind of strangles their funding in terms of its relationship to property taxes. I also know that local fundraising is critical to public schools, and I am willing to commit to leading as much of that effort as it makes sense for an alderman to do. Putting together fundraisers is not that hard for a sitting alderman, and putting one together for education is just natural. So I'm committed to doing that. I'm committed to talking to people I have relationships with who are, private individual donors as well as philanthropies. I think there's definitely money in the city, state, federal level additional money that could be leveraged. What we need to do, I think, to maximize that possibility is in each of our neighborhoods in the ward, I think we need to have conversations about a vision for those schools. And if we can get parents and teachers and students together in a vision for how we can make schools better, that's a powerful tool to take to somebody or to take to an institution and say, this is how we're going to do things different here, but we need your help. That's something that I'm willing to very actively engage in because I think it's really essential to what we're doing. I believe when all is said and done that you need an alderman who's an advocate for, the schools, but specifically for the families that go to those schools and for the teachers who have really been straitjacketed by a lot of the policies that constrict their ability to teach creatively, put a lot of pressure on them to teach to standardized tests. And we just need to go in the opposite direction, in my view, and really give teachers more freedom. And I think if we're able to, bring resources to bear in schools, then we can have a conversation about ways to do that. We also need to improve parent access, and that's another way that we can make that happen.